If we make assumptions about what the horse is thinking, we're actually likely to punish that behavior. Very clear understanding of what you're asking the horse to do before you ask the horse to do it.
We welcome back Kate Fenner to Horse Chats today. Now, Kate's been a previous guest, number 127 and number 438. But this time, instead of coming on as Kate Fenner, she's coming on as Dr. Kate Fenner. So, Kate, we talked about a PhD in the studies last time, and we'll talk to her about completing a PhD this time. And she's, of course, another equitana educator, and she's going to talk about the practical application of equitation science. We'll talk about those sessions in a minute as well. But before we do that, I'd just like to remind you about the values of International Horse College. So horse welfare and safety are of utmost importance to us at International Horse College, which is why we've included them in our values statement. With the wide variety of horse courses, we only utilise methods that promote safe and humane methods of interaction between horses and humans, and only support safe methods of educating riders, handlers and trainers about horse welfare. Have a look now at our online horse courses at internationalhorsecollege.com, registered training organisation 31352. Now, first of all, I'd say, stop this, go back, have a listen to Kate's previous podcast, and then come back to this one, because Kate really is a specialist, just training in horsemanship. She's been riding all her life, and she was competing in Singapore at an international dressage competition, the Rolex, and she found that a horse was tense. She wasn't enjoying it, and the horse wasn't enjoying it, and then she decided to find a better way of riding and training a horse so that the horse would enjoy and provide her with a more relaxed and happy riding partner. This took her over to the USA, where she studied with John and Josh Lyons, and then home to Australia to learn more about the science behind how horses learned. And she's got a PhD in horse behaviour and training from University of Sydney. And Kate's also just continued to help riders around the globe with their horses. And Kate is, of course, qualified with both the British Horse Society and Australia within her coaching and instructing life. Kate, welcome back to Horse Chats.
Thank you very much, Glenys. It's lovely to be here.
Kate, I love having you back anyway, but since we chatted to you last time, tell me a bit about finalising your PhD and anything else that's relevant to the last time we talked.
Well, yeah, the PhD was a lot of fun. It was something that's very dear to my heart. So we developed the Equine Behaviour Assessment and Research Questionnaire. So short EBARQ is the shortening. So e-barq.com. Anyone can find it. And it's this great tool for any horse owner or horse rider because it monitors your horse's behavior. So you can go along, it's free to use, you can set up an account and you can answer about 200 questions, takes a little while, about your horse, and you can do, that'll be your benchmark. So these are your benchmark questions and answers about your horse. Then 6 months later, you can go back and do it again and see how you've changed, see how your horse's behavior has changed. So at the end of your EBARQ, we give you a graph that rates your horse or compares your horse to the population. We've currently got over 8,000 records in EBARQ, and it compares your horse's behavior to that of the other horses in there. And so we look at trainability, rideability, compliance, confidence, how easily the horse goes and stops, and all of these 13 different things that we look at. And so you can look at your results and you can say, oh, perhaps my horse is not scoring very well on confidence. So I'm going to go away and I'm going to work on that for 6 months. I'm going to come back again and I'm going to see if I can improve my horse's confidence scores. And so it's great like that. It's a citizen science project. So what we're doing is we're offering the horse owners something in that they get to benchmark their horse's behavior, and we're taking those sort of de-identified data and we're doing work with them behind the scenes. So we've done a number of different experiments using these data, and we've had some really interesting findings. So we're busting a few myths along the way, which is really fun.
Look, I think, and I've used the tool myself, and I think what a great way for people to be competitive against themselves. They don't have to be competitive, go out, go to competitions, get nervous, get the horse worried, but it's still a way to know that you're getting better. If you just go back 6 months later and you're scoring higher, you're getting better. So you're really competing within yourself.
Absolutely.
Great, great. Now, I know you've got some findings. So do you want to tell us about what you've found so far?
Well, some interesting things. Like, for example, we looked at the difference between the behavior of ridden mares and geldings, because mares have a bit of a bad reputation. So what we first of all did, we asked people, what they think about mares and geldings. And it turns out that if you ask people to assign dichotomous adjectives to mares and geldings, the mares get all the bad ones like bossy, and the geldings get all the nice ones like willing. And if you think about that, I think we're setting ourselves up to not treat the mares as well as the geldings, let's say that. Because what happens if you go into a lesson or go into a ride or go into a round pen, whatever it is, with a mare, and a mare does something, perhaps kicks at you or something, you might make an assumption about that mare. That mare's being rude, that mare's being bossy, that mare's being difficult. Whereas if it's a gelding, you might think, perhaps that gelding has a problem with his leg. Or do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And if we make assumptions about what the horse is thinking, we're actually likely to punish that behavior. So it makes us quite reactive. And so it's important that we understand that, actually what we found with no differences between the ridden behavior of mares and geldings, we found that geldings chew on ropes a little bit more or rugs, things like that. Geldings are a little bit more mouthy, and mares might be a little bit harder to catch. But they were both ground behavior things. So that was really interesting. We did another study with the EBUNK data, which looked at the difference in behavior of horses that were ridden and trained by men and those that were only ridden and trained by women. And we found some differences there as well. One of the differences we found were those that were trained by men were a little bit more difficult to catch, but they were less likely to toss their head or pull on the reins when they were ridden. So just some really interesting findings. And if you go along to e-bark.com, you can find all those studies, and they're there, and you can have a look at those.
Kate, worse than mares, the chestnut mares. Was there any difference in the colours between, chestnut mare and any other colour?
We found no colour differences as yet. We haven't specifically gone to search the data for chestnut mares. We are currently, Professor Paul McGreevy and I are currently writing a paper about breed differences. So that will be very interesting, and that's coming up, and that's come up with some really interesting findings. So
Yes,
look out for that one.
Well, I'd certainly like to get you back, when we've got that, and, let's bust some of these myths as well.
Yeah.
Now, Kate, at Equitana on Thursday, you're talking about engaging your horse with learning. Can you tell us a bit more about what you plan to do there?
Yeah, that's right. So I think one of the biggest things that goes wrong with training is that we get the horse's emotional level wrong. So either the horse is too emotional and a bit scared, or the horse is not emotional enough and pretty much asleep. And there's a place in there that I call the engagement zone. So I want the horse a little bit more emotional than they would be if they were just sort of standing next to me having a chat, but not so emotional as to be nervous or anxious about anything. And from an experiment that I did a few years ago, before my PhD, I found that was, if you look at heart rate and heart rate variability, I found that was about 10 to 15% above the resting rate. So it's a little bit like sitting up a bit taller. It's a bit like the teacher at school that's engaging and has you thinking, oh, this sounds fun, I'll get into this, rather than the teacher that's screaming at you or the teacher that's sending you to sleep, so you're looking out the window. So just that little bit, we've got to be interesting, don't we? I think that's sort of our job as the trainer, is to make it fun for the horse and make it interesting. And so for me, it's increase emotional level just a little bit, and then start a conversation with the horse. I call it the bubble of engagement. And For me, a bubble is a really good thing because it's very fragile. And if the horse gets too emotional, the horse is going to raise its head and prick its ears, and the bubble is going to burst. So we need to keep the horse in this bubble, and it's a communication thing. So what I start everything with is a give to the bit lesson, which is just a sort of pressure release reward lesson, where I pick up pressure on a rein or a lead rein if the horse is only wearing a head collar. I ask for a response, a movement of the head, and then I release and reward that. And quite quickly, the horse learns this pattern and goes, oh, I can do this. And then we've opened the conversation then. Now we're having a conversation. So I can ask the horse something else. Okay, you can drop your head for pressure. Can you walk forward? And, oh, okay, yeah, I've got the right movement. And then what we do is we sort of develop this shopping list of things that are potential answers that the horse could give. And we always use that same sequence so that the spot on the horse we want to move, we need to have that in our head. The direction we want that to go, we need to have that in our head. Then we need something to motivate the horse to move that spot. And that might just be our voice. It's usually some sort of pressure. It might be our voice, it might be the whip, it might be a rein, it might be a leg, something. Then we release that pressure because the pressure and release has to go together. And then we reward the horse for getting the right answer. So it's what we call combined reinforcement. We're using positive and negative reinforcement together, and we're avoiding punishment altogether, punishment correction. Because what happens when we start using correction is the horse's world becomes quite unpredictable. What I want the horse to do is relax and look for answers. So if the horse feels or hears some pressure, the horse knows, okay, I've got to move something. What might this be? And if we only practice those responses that we want the horse to give us in the future, like walk forward, step right, slow down, those sorts of things, then the horse is unlikely to offer those other behaviors. So whatever the horse repeats enough, the horse that he's going to pop that on his shopping list. And so, oh, okay, maybe that was throwing my head in the air. So every time, even if I'm not asking the horse to do anything, or if I'm leading the horse or something, the horse throws its head in the air, that adds that to that horse's shopping list. So I want to be really mindful about what I'm asking the horse to do and really mindful about what response the horse is giving me, because that's when I release and reward. So as an example, I've taught 2 horses on purpose to rear on command, just for demonstration purposes, bit of fun. The first one took me 45 minutes to teach the horse, and the second one took me 3 minutes. Now, the only difference, I had the same signal, everything was the same, but the second time I was releasing on a behavior that came before lifting the feet off the ground. Yeah? So with the first horse, I was waiting to lift the front feet, whereas the second horse, I was releasing when the horse lifted its ear about this much. And honestly, 3 minutes is not long, and it shows you how easy it is to teach a response like that without even realizing that you're teaching it.
The other thing that was different, Kate, is that you had previous experience, so you'd done that with the other one?
Yeah, yeah. So it's the timing thing is really important. And, we often say, well, pressure release, so brain tension, for example, it's negative reinforcement. But it's only negative reinforcement if it's released. If it's not released, it's positive punishment. It's like a food reward. A food reward is a great positive reinforcement, but if it's not given at the right time, it becomes negative punishment because you're withholding it. So timing is really important. And I think the way to get around that, or to maximize that, or optimize your timing, is to have a very clear understanding of what you're asking the horse to do before you ask the horse to do it. I want to know which foot I want to move, where I want it to go. Then I can be really timely. But otherwise, it is quite difficult if I'm a bit blur.
And I think that goes with, not just teaching a horse to rear, but with a lot of other things, with just all training right throughout, whether it's
everything.
Just everything. Yep. It's understanding the horse's nature.
It
Yeah.
is. It is, and it is being really clear before you start. Like if you want the horse to get on the trailer, for example, if your goal is just to get the horse on the trailer, that's quite hard to do. The horse is very big, the trailer's very small. You've got four legs, a head, everything. It's very difficult. If you just think, oh, I really want to get the tip of the nose a bit further forward, and then I'm a bit further back, and a bit further forward, and a bit further back, then I can release and reward on the horse thinking forward, like just moving its weight forward a bit, and that's a positive step, So, and the horse go, oh, okay, and pretty soon the horse is going, oh, I'll take a whole step, but that's the way to think about it. Find that spot on the horse, that little tiny spot on the horse that you want to move, and just focus on that, because otherwise we become quite blur. Yeah, wanting to get the whole horse to do something is quite difficult, and it doesn't need to be that difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. On Friday, I think it is, you're doing long reining.
Long reining, yeah, I love long reining. It's quite a dying art, and people get quite confused about the difference between long reining and driving. Um, for me, driving, that's a useful tool for teaching your horse how to turn when you're starting it under saddle, perhaps something like that. Or if you have a plough horse or something else, that's very useful. But long reining, I use instead of lunging. So I might teach the horse to lunge briefly right at the beginning of the starting process, because it's quite good for teaching the horse to move around you. That's quite good. But I like long reining because I do it with the saddle on, and I run the reins through the stirrups. And what that means to me is long reining for me is a great place to ask my sort of three questions. I have these three questions. The first one is, can I ride it? And I can't remember.
I think that's okay, because our listeners will have to go to Equitation to find out what the other two
Well,
steps
they
are.
would. They
Exactly.
would.
Exactly. Kate, when I was at, I used to get quite a few lessons with Edgar Lickvart when I was on the eventing team, and he was brilliant. Anyway, we were doing some, we'd sort of do lots of different odds and ends when he, came over at lunchtime, whatever, and we're doing some long reining, and that's something that I love as well. So I brought my horse out and did some long reining, and, everything was cool. And then I thought he was going to say, because he's always up for a challenge, like Edgar, I thought he was going to say, great, Glenys, well done, long reining's great. And he said to me, well, that's one horse. How many can you do? And I went, what do you mean? And I said at the same time, and he says, yeah, like, how many can you do? Because when you're in a busy stable, you got to be long reining 3 or 4 at a time. And I don't know if he was joking or not, but I decided that I'd give it a go, and I thought I'll just get out, and the one that I was long reining at the time was a stallion. So I thought, well, better just get out, 2 geldings. So I got out 2 geldings, and as single individual horses, they were fine. I tried the long rein 2 together. What a mess. I couldn't couldn't do it. I just thought, this is going to get dangerous. One of these horses is going to get injured. I'm sort of asking one to go forward, trying to separate them, trying to do the distances. So it's a skill that I just thought, there's things that you've got to learn, and there's other things that you don't need to learn.
You probably don't need to, Glenys.
Hey,
Yeah.
I don't think I
Yeah.
need to do that. Yeah.
I love teaching people long rein, because they'll watch you do it and go, oh, that looks easy enough. And then they get out there and take the reins, and they're
Yes.
like,
Well, that's how I was when I did the 2. It was just awful. Yeah.
yeah. So it's one of those things. You need to practice it. But once you have it, it's so useful, isn't it?
Oh, definitely.
If your horse has been off for a while, if your horse, is, been in the paddock on the long grass, if you're wondering if your horse is sound or not, all these different things, that you can use it for. And what I really like about it is that because you've got one rein in each hand, you can see your horse's frame and outline and everything, but you can feel the horse. Is the horse heavy in the hand, or is the horse actually in self carriage? And I can change direction without having,
Yes. Yes.
side reins or any of that
Yeah.
thing. Nothing for the horse to lean on. and I can take the horse out in the paddock. I always long rein my trail rides before I ride them, and it's so much fun. But it is quite the dying art, which is really sad.
Yep, yep. No, I think that's a really good one for people to go to then, not just to find out step 2 and 3, but, to just go and have a look. And if you are going to do it, make sure you do it with a quiet horse that doesn't have a kick tendency.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the things at Equitana that I'm going to be doing is not, I won't spend too much time showing the horse long reining because that's easy enough, but it's the habituation work that comes before. That's where we need it to be safe for you and for the horse, and because it can end up quite messy quite quickly. Um, and so I've got a young horse that's coming down that hasn't long reined, so we can see that horse, learning the lesson, which I think is always good. And yeah, we'll see how we go. Be fun.
Kate, just one other thing, and I know we've talked about this previously. You've competed dressage, jumping, western, polo. Have you got any preference for any type of riding? You might say, look, I don't compete anymore. I just prefer trail riding, or you know what? I know you do a lot of work on the ground and you really love that, but do you prefer the work on the ground? Do you prefer, just tell me a little bit of what you
Yeah,
like
it's
to
a
do.
great question. It's a great question. I don't compete anymore. I judge quite a bit. I love groundwork because it keeps me safe in the saddle. And I'm always on the ground. I'm always mentally riding the horse. I really love to ride, but I think it's fairer on the horse to teach everything you can on the ground before you get on. It's much easier for the horse. It's much simpler, and there's no reason why you can't teach everything from the ground. So in my I've got a training program online, and we do everything from the ground first, and then under saddle. And so we long rein quite early on as well, so that we can get those counter transitions and all of that sort of thing. But even hindquarter control, we start that on the ground. All the lateral work, we start on the ground. But again, you're mentally on the horse. So, I teach something, for example, I teach the horse really early on because I'm very short to move its hips, the mounting block to get on. And that's a lesson, in about 5 or 10 minutes, you can have your horse side passing on the ground really easily because all you're doing is connecting the signal to the hindquarters to come towards you. And a lot of people say to me, "Oh, do you teach that on both sides?" No, so no, I don't, because it's not a signal I can use from the saddle. So I can teach the horse to side pass to the right under saddle, but I can't give the horse the same signal under saddle. It's a ground signal, it's a click your fingers. Can't do it in the saddle, so it's not of any use to me. So no reason why I shouldn't teach it, just because you can and it's fun. But for me, no, I'm mentally on the horse, and that gets me on the horse, and then
Well, I think there's so many things that you can teach your horse to do, but you've got to
oh
work out what you want. What's
yeah,
the result that you want, and what
yeah,
your priorities are, and go
mm,
from there. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
And I like the way that you said that I'd like to do all this stuff on the ground because it makes it safer when I get in the saddle, and we're all about safety.
Yeah, yeah. And you can assess the horse much better from the ground.
Yep,
Like,
yep,
how
for
it is.
sure.
We don't teach the horses anything terribly complicated, really. And so, if you can make it clearer and easier for the horse on the ground, why not do that?
Kate, I've got another question, and this is sort of going back to your PhD. If someone's at school, just left school, they might be doing a bit of study and they think, oh, I want to study, I want to do this. And things always progress from one thing to another to another. It's a bit tricky you don't just go and enroll in a PhD program. Have you got hints? Because, you for a degree or a master's, you can look online, see what courses are available and enroll online. What would you say about doing a PhD, and what's the best way to enter it?
Yeah, look, it's hugely rewarding. And I had to go back as an adult learner, and I hadn't finished my undergraduate degree. So I went back and did equine science because, well, that'll be relevant. But as a sort of, 40 something year old, then being told that I had to, my first lesson was chemistry, it was pretty scary. But we get through these things, and that was a lot of fun. And then as I got sort of to my honors year, I was told that if you do an honors year, that you can get straight into a PhD. without doing a sort of master's. So I did that. But I think the thing is to work out where it is you want to be and then get to know those people, because there's a lot of really friendly people in equitation science. So if you join the International Society for Equitation Science, they're a wonderful group. Anyone can join. You can join as a student member. It's pretty cheap.
Is it isis.org?
Equitationscience.com.
Okay. We'll put a link there.
Yeah, put a link. That'd be good. I'm the junior vice president there at the moment, and there's just some really great people. And we're doing a lot of things on social media. We're doing podcasts. We're doing Meet the Author. It's a great place to network, get to know people, and get some ideas about what you might want to do. Because a research PhD is a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Wonderful. Kate, is there anything else that I should have asked you, but I haven't?
I don't think so. But I'm looking forward to seeing you next week at Equitana.
Yeah. I think that'll be really good. Really looking forward to that, and looking forward to catching up with quite a lot of people that we've had on the podcast as well. I think at the moment you're the second last, Kate. We've got someone else is after you, and then all the audios and podcasts and everything should all be published before Equitana. The videos might come a little bit later because they take a bit longer, but we'll certainly get them out, try and get all the audios out before Equitana. And
great.
they'll be on a podcast. And if you're not sure where the podcast is, it's Horse Chats, or you can download the app Horse Chats. Horse Chats podcast.
Good. That was one thing I wanted to mention, Glenys, talking about apps. I've just released a Can-Do horse training app. Yeah, I wouldn't mind people having a look at that, because it's got a little 7-day challenge in it, which gives you an idea about what I do and what you can achieve with your horse in a short time.
So is that like KANDOO? Is that what it's called, the app?
Can-Do Equine Horse Training. You can get it on Apple and Android.
Okay, great.
But it's just
we might put those details down as well. Yeah.
Super.
Yeah. So everyone, especially if you've already listened to Kate's previous chats, you'll know that you go to horsechats.com, you can search for Kate, search for Fenner, and just down the bottom of her page, it'll be all the contact details and, other links that we've talked about will be there. Kate, if people would like to contact you, do you prefer text, email, phone, socials?
Anything. I'm on social media. Probably email is best, kate@candoequine.com.au. That's probably the easiest way to get me. And
we'll put the details of your app as well. So, yep.
Yeah, terrific. That'd be great.
All right. Now, if you've cheated and you haven't listened to Kate's previous chat, go and listen to them now. You'll appreciate what she's done if you listen to the previous two. Okay. Thanks, Kate. I'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks. It's been fun, Glenys. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.